Tutorial is to go over the jit.grab object. It's a pretty quick tutorial. It uses a lot of concepts in jitter that we've already kind of covered, and it's a pretty small object, much more so than jitmovie. But the jit.grab object, what it does is it just grabs your camera. For most of you, it's probably going to be similar to this camera I'm using right now, which is the top of my Apple laptop here, your FaceTime camera, I think it's called. But we're just going to go ahead and make an object and say jit.grab. And it says digitize video from an external source. That's more information than we need. I mean, it's technically true, but 90% of the usage we're going to have is just to get our camera. And so this operates a lot like the jitmovie object. It needs a metro. In this case, we're going to do a Q metro, which is specific to video and frame related stuff. I'm going to say Q metro 33. The math on that, one bang every 33 milliseconds, is about 30 frames a second, which is probably the frame rate of your camera on your computer. Hook it up like that. I'll grab a toggle so I can turn it on. And with the jitmovie object, we use the read message to read a movie. We're going to use a different set of, it's a message. We're going to use a different message for this. We're going to grab one here. I'll type open. And you can see it auto-completes. It says open a sequence grab component. Basically what we're doing is saying like find the camera and turn it on, so to speak. So I can hook it up here. I'm going to copy paste this, and I can also say close camera. And this one will close the camera. And then the last thing we need here is a way to view the image. And you can remember you can use the JIT window or JIT-P window. Since I have this little video floating right here, I'll use JIT-P window to keep it in the patch. So object JIT.P window for patcher window. And it turns into this little handy thing here. And let's go ahead and make it pretty big. Well, maybe we'll make it smaller once we get to some of this other stuff. And I'll lock the patch and I'll click open. And you should see the little green light on your computer camera there turn on. If you don't have an Apple MacBook, then it might be something a little different. And then I'm just going to turn on the Q Metro. And you can see now I have two copies of myself, two images, and it's actually going to scale to the size of this thing. So you could always like type in the exact dimensions you wanted for this if you wanted. And if I say close, this is actually a little, I'm wondering if I close this, is it going to send a signal to close this? Let's find out. No, it didn't. So that's great. And what we have here is actually the last frame. It doesn't just like turn off and disappear into a black frame. It just turns into showing the last frame it ever received. So that's basically it. There's a few other things we can look at. Like I was saying, this green patch cord is part of the jitter world, so it means any of the JIT precosa, any of those objects that we've looked at in the other tutorials, you can do that to a movie, or you can do that to your camera image as well as like to a movie. So everything's up for grabs. A few things to note, that we can expand this a little more. If you have multiple cameras installed on your computer, you can set which camera you're targeting with this object with V device, which I believe stands for video device. I guess it's possible it's something else, but I don't know. And you can just grab the $1 and a float box. It'll take an integer. And this would be the index of which camera on your computer it would see. I don't believe I have any other cameras installed on my computer, so like it may not be able to test it. But if I had a USB web camera on like plugged in as well as this laptop one, if I had a virtual camera, some of you may have played with those. It basically tricks your other softwares into thinking that you have a different camera installed on the computer, but it's all with it. You could send like a movie file or something as like a camera input. Examples of that are Minicam or Cam Twist. If you have those installed, when you hit open, it might not go to this camera right here. And you could set which camera, like I said, by toggling between here. If you want to find out, sometimes it's hard to tell if you want to know what cameras your Macs or your computer, frankly, thinks it has on there. You can open the help file here, and you can say get video device list and get format list, and it'll spit out, and there's a sub patch here that does some like text parsing. I I mean, you don't need to build this for your own thing if you want to, but like you could. But frankly, a lot of times when I need to check, I just open the help file, and if I click video, get v device and get format, it'll report in this U menu object everything that it sees. And you can see right here, FaceTime HD camera. Like I said, it might be like USB webcam, Medicam, cam twist. So that's like a good place to debug it. And the order in which you see it here will be the index with the index 0. So like this would be the video device 0 and next one video device 1. So that's just a way to target a specific camera. Two more things. One, we can always change the dimension of the image. So I could say dim, standing for dimension, $1, $2, and I need to give it two arguments. So I'm going to pack it together, PAK00, and I'll make two ints, I, and I guess I have to go back and open this again. There we go. Now I'm back in the frame. And I could type this to, let's see, I don't know, 12 by 16. I guess it would be 16 by 12. There we go. So now I have this very pixelated version of myself. And let's add a little comment there, X, Y. The other thing we could do is we can set that as the first argument if we knew we wanted something. Let's say that like something that the reason you might use this besides the cool effects of this is the more pixels you're processing, the more taxing it's going to be on your computer. So if I said 1920 by 1080, it's going to be processing a lot more information than if it was 16 by 12. So there might be times you're like, oh, you know what? I don't actually really need like a high quality image. I'm just going to make sure that my camera is at like 320 by 240. That's especially true for things like computer vision, where fidelity is not as important. It's more just like general movement and whatnot. But anyway, the example would be I just type 320 by 240. And when I hit enter, it's going to stop working because I've reinstantiated the object, which means I just need to hit open again. And you can't even really see a difference when it's that small. But this is just a way of saying, like, make sure to open as that. And then, of course, this would override it if I did it. The one last thing to look at is you can say @unique1. I'm targeting this unique argument and giving it a value of 1 to say I do want to turn this flag. Like it's a flag for whether something should be on or off. 1 will say I want to turn this function or this argument on for jit.grab. Again, I have to hit open. And you don't see any difference. All that it's saying is, I lost my train of thought there for a second. All it's saying is only spit out a frame if it's different from the previous frame. And the reason we might want to do that is it can improve performance. If I set my Q metro to 2 for some reason, now it's like at 180 frames a second. I'm not even sure. To be frank, your camera definitely does not do 180 frames a second. But every time you send a bang out here, it's going to cause a frame to come out. And it would cause everything in that chain to start again with like processing the image, especially if you have a lot of those different JIT objects processing the image. There's no point for it to process that image if it's the same as the previous image. You're just asking your computer to take on a heavier workload. So with jit.grab @unique1, it kind of creates a fail-safe. It's basically like, oh, you know what? Like that last frame I sent out, you sent me another bang, and it's the same frame, so I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to ignore all these bangs until I get the sense that you've updated this next frame, and then I'll send that one out. Like I said, it's a little bit inside baseball in the weeds, or it's a detail that may not be something you really need to know, but it's always good to be aware of it. I usually kind of build that into my patches. So yeah, like I said, this object will interface with any of the other objects that we've been exploring in this week's tutorial. Enjoy.